Let's go over number 17 of the SOA sample questions for exam P. So, without further ado, let's read the question. An insurance company pays hospital claims. The number of claims that include emergency room or operating room charges is 85% of the total number of claims. The number of claims that do not include emergency room charges is 25% of the total number of claims. The occurrence of emergency room charges is independent of the occurrence of operating charges on hospital claims. Calculate the probability that a claim submitted to the insurance company includes operating room charges. So, while reading this question, you'll notice that I underlined certain words because I think those words are important. So, the first word is or. So, or is meaning that you could have an emergency room charge, or you can have an operating room charge, or you can have both emergency room and operating room charges. So it's all kind of connected in the sense of uh, anything for that is considered emergency or operating room charges is included in this 85%. This underlined portion of do not include emergency room charges is anything excluding emergency room charges is going to be 25%, meaning that you can have an operating room charge or you can have no charge at all. And this last underlined portion of being independent, we'll kind of get into that a little bit more deeply while I solve the question. But in a nutshell, it's basically when you have an intersection between two different types of coverages. In order to calculate that intersection, since they're both independent of each other, all you do is just multiply the different probabilities of those two different populations and you get the probability of the intersection. So let's draw a Venn diagram for illustration purposes. Okay, and I'm going to call this E for emergency and O for operating. Okay, and I'm going to call this X, Y, and Z. And we have all this space outside of here for anything that does not fall into these categories, which would be 1 minus this 85%, which is 15%, but I'm not going to worry about that. So let's just kind of go through the information that we're given first. So I'm going to start with this third sentence here. The number of claims that do not include emergency room charges is 25%. So that means that if it does not include emergency room charges, X and Y is not included in this 25%. So it's going to be Z and the squiggly portion is 25%. So the question is, what is X and Y then? Well, if Z and everything else is 25%, that means X plus Y is equal to 1 minus 25%, or the complement of that. So probability of E, which is equal to X plus Y, is equal to 1 minus 0.25, which is equal to 0.75. Okay, so that was easy. So let's start with now the second sentence of the number of claims that include emergency room or operating room charges is 85%. So that means that the probability of E union, remember we're using the union because the key word is or, so that means it's not an intersection, it's everything included. So that would be x plus y plus z. X plus y plus z is equal to 0.85. Okay, so if we break down what this actual formula is, the probability of E union O, right? The probability of emergency union operating. Let's write it a little bit more, I guess, concisely. So the probability of E union O, if we were to write it formulaically, would be the probability of E plus the probability of O minus the intersection, which would be the probability of E multiplied by, I'm going to, it's a little bit messy, but hopefully it makes sense, but minus the probability of E times the probability of O, right? And the reason why we're using probability E times the probability O is because we know that the occurrence of emergency room charges is independent of the occurrence of operating room charges. So because it's independent, that means that this intersection only happens, or we can get the probability of this intersection by multiplying these two different probabilities through the rules of intersections. So we know what the probability of E is. We just don't know what the probability of O is. So, but we know what the probability of E union O is. So we can use some algebra to get there. So let's start substituting the probability E with 0.75. So this is equal to 0.75 plus the probability of O minus 0.75 times the probability of O. Okay, and then if we simplify this formula a little bit, it'll look like this, where we pull out the probability of O from this two different terms. So it will be 1 minus 0.75 which will equal 0.75 plus 0.25 times probability of O. So, and we know all of this is equal to 0.85. So now it's just moving the terms to each side and solving for probability of O. So when we do this, we know that the probability of O is equal to 0.4. And 0.4 is going to be our answer, and that's answer choice D. If you like this video, or if you like the explanation, please leave a like. If you have any questions or comments, leave a comment, and I'll catch you in the next video.